It's 9 o'clock on Monday, September the 14th, 2015, and I call the Bible County Commissioners Court to order. Today we have Barry Loving from First Christian Church who will do vindication. You will all please stand and remain standing for the pledge afterwards.
Let us pray. Eternal and loving God, we thank you for a day you granted us of life, to breathe, to live to our fullest, and to embrace your spirit as we gather. We pray a blessing over this courtroom, over the officers of the court, over those who have come to speak, that your spirit would be in this place, that we would heed your spirit, and that we would follow your counsel and follow your lead in guiding us in decisions made here today. We trust you with our lives, and we pray for a good life today. Pray for those who are in harm's way today. May you place your spirit of protection upon them, and may they serve loyally and faithfully. Father, forgive us where we fail you. Let us walk with you in grace and peace. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honoring the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, we have a full house today. We're going to skip around and see if we can alleviate some of the crowdedness. We're going to go to first number 9, Prairie West Estates, unit number 12. Consider and act upon accepting approval of the plat of Prairie West Estates number 12. So, Herman, you want to come up and get it? I didn't bring the plat, it's in the office. This is
Prairie West number 12 is a 6-lot, basically equal project. Prairie West. Roads are already in place and built. It's just dividing up a little bit of acreage we have left.
we've done several of these already in that area.
Yeah.
My only question to you is drainage going to be any kind of an issue out there? I know that we've had all kinds of calls issues.
This particular one does not get down to where the issues have been. The drain runs down 19th, it turns and goes south the side road, those names left me, but and it runs to I-40. It doesn't get all the way to the east side. No.
It doesn't go north. Will we approve the plat Prairie West State unit number 12? Sir.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll get that signed this afternoon, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and move to number 11. Public hearing improvement of certain roads in Bishop Branches. Conduct a public hearing, A, to consider the proposed improvement of Headquarters Road, Ranch Road, Hillview Road, and Eastview Road to comply with Bible County standards for roads. And B, to consider whether to assess all or part of the cost of the improvement pro rata against the records owners of the road property for the subdivision of Bishop Estates. Do we have a spokesperson for this? And we do. Good morning.
Hi.
How are you? If you'll state your name for the record.
Becky Wilson. I believe the commissioners are all very well aware from the original presentation made to the commission 6 weeks or so, 2 months ago, of the condition of the roads in Bishop Branches. The homeowners have spent thousands of their own dollars and hours of their own time trying to keep the roads simply passable. There have been times that if someone had needed emergency services, quite possibly the emergency vehicles would have been able to get to their homes, but there are many times that if that fire truck or that ambulance is not 4-wheel drive, they're not going to get out. We've got school buses that travel those roads. We have parents that won't allow their children to ride the school bus because of the conditions of the roads. Like I said, I believe the commissioners were presented with pictures of the roads, videos at one of the last meetings. And so for the homeowners, landowners, the county, maintenance or the emergency vehicles, I mean, we're at a point after this season of rain, we don't have an option but to improve those. And I don't know about you folks, but we can't all come up with the money that it takes to have those roads fixed. All we're asking is for the county to fix those roads, assess those against the landowners. We've all agreed on how that would be divided amongst the homeowners and have had a vote on that, and I believe we're ready for the commission to send out a ballot.
Okay.
I do have a couple follow-up questions. So the vote that was presented to the homeowners, how many homeowners are in that area? I'm remembering roughly 20, right?
Actually, there were, I believe 45 notices sent out. We received back, more than 50% of those, and out of those, there were only, because we sent one to each, well, you're right, it was about 20 or so, because we sent one to each homeowner, and I believe we sent one to husband and wife, because I believe that's the way the law reads, that the ballots have to go out, is to each landowner. So there'll be one sent out to each husband, each wife, you know, whoever's on the deed to the property. And so there were about 45 sent out. We received a little over 20 of those back. And out of those, there were only 5 dissenting votes, quote unquote votes. Those people are not going, or 4 of those are not going to have their roads improved. They live further on up headquarters, and the improvements will stop. They have cut their own roads directly from Tascosa Road, which is not an option for us personally, not an option. So we can't cut a road directly from Tascosa Road. Besides, that would have to be grandfathered in by the TxDOT, lots of other things. We'd have to cross other landowners' land. So four of those have been completely taken out. The other landowner has had the process explained. She thought she was gonna have to come up with all the money at once. That's been explained to her, and she is now, on board with what we're doing.
And so the survey that was sent out, because we didn't see that, or at least I didn't see that survey, if you'll call it that, or notice to the families, what are some of the questions that it asked the families? If it's just something that they would wanna do?
Yeah, it was just explained, I said, are you in favor of improvements? After that, then we had a meeting. Homeowners, landowners all came together, and it was all discussed what the process would be, what would need to be done, explain to them that if it failed at this point, if we fail to pass at this point, we can proceed again for 4 more years. So, believe me, everybody's so in favor. We've had one homeowner who, riding his motorcycle, the road was so bad, he fell over and he broke his leg. It's just that bad.
Of the percentile, or let me back up a little bit, on the survey, if I'm calling it the right thing, it may have just been a questionnaire to say this is coming and are you in favor? Did it also include the formula? Commissioner Church did provide the formula to us that would be assessed to each homeowner?
We put together several different formulas, and they were presented to the homeowners at a second meeting, and it was voted on as to which formula that we believed was the fairest for dividing the cost.
Is that the one that was presented to us, Commissioner
Yes.
Church, the final one? Okay.
So the long and short of it, you are okay with the formula and the allocation of the funds that would be made to all of the residents?
I'm sorry?
The formula that was generated that the commission speaks of, you are in agreement with that? You don't have no issues with that
No.
as far as the?
No, and I'm one of the highest paying residents. I'm one of the top 5, probably second or third on that list.
Okay, I just.
We do have some other folks here.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
that's-
say-
that would be great.
That's what.
There's lots of other folks here.
I wouldn't mind helping, maybe I could clarify. I'm Samantha Usnick in our 11310 headquarters. And,
Just step up to the.
oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. There are 25 individual different property owners. Like she said, if you include husbands and wives, there are more. But there are 25 individuals. There are 4 that we never could contact. And I'm the one who had gone to both Randall County Appraisal District, or Randall County Tax Office, PRAD, Potter County Tax Office, I've tried everything. I went to the voting clerk and tried to get more information on how to contact those folks, and we have just been completely unsuccessful with getting hold of those last four. So in regard to the formula, everyone, I believe that everyone with the exception of those 4 people was at the meeting. I believe that's true, and it was unanimous. It was a unanimous consent to the formula.
Great. Is there anybody here that's against this? Yes, sir.
Hi, Steve Denny, property owner. I'm not necessarily against it, I just want to be sure that the commission is clear that the property owners they spoke of on headquarters up there, that's probably me, my parents, some people named Grice. I believe it is Miss Houston's property line. If that's being excluded from the consideration of the commission, then I have no objection because it doesn't involve.
It is, they are excluded as
Yes,
a
sir.
reason.
But
Which is what
I
we were
wasn't-
talking about earlier.
I wasn't at that second meeting. I did get the survey card, but I didn't come to the last commission meeting. And if we're excluded, then I have no opinion on it because it doesn't affect me. I have my own travel.
It's our understanding that you would be excluded.
Okay. No objection.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would add, Judge, the part that makes me just a little nervous, and Dave, I'll lean on you to keep me in line here, is once the ballots get sent out, it's the majority of who turns in the ballots
That's
that wins the election, if you will.
Yeah,
So
majority of the ballot votes sent out. We'll send out a ballot to every property owner. So again, as Wilson said, that's, if it's jointly owned by husband and wife, they each get a vote. So, and the ballot will tell them what their maximum amount is, for the price. So we'll split that in half. And that'll be paid out over a 10-year period, whatever the commissioner said.
Do we send those out?
Yes, we've sent
Who
those
counts
out.
them?
We're talking about that. What?
Who counts them?
They come back to the county clerk, Julie and I have already been talking about that. We've got to send them all out by certified mail, and I've got a draft of the ballot if you'd like to take a look at it. We have to tell the person what their maximum portion of it is going to be, the cost is going to be, and they go yes or no, return it to us, and sell for the rest stamped on wood.
Carrie, will you remind me the estimate, and I realize it's an estimate that Sebastian presented to the court during our budget process of this work? 200,000. And Dave, today, we're not confirming, if that's something that we proceeded forward with, we're not confirming the duration of that expense, or I'm not sure if in that formula, it's implying that it's 10 years for the taxpayers to pay it off, or 5, or
I think that's what they're asking for, is 10 years.
That's what they're asking for.
Yes.
And when you're talking, close to $200,000 or more, even when you divide it by 25 homeowners, that's going to be extremely expensive. That's in addition to our county taxes, our hospital district tax. That's in addition to all those things. And the county is totally protected because there is an assessment, just like county taxes, against the property. And that will follow, if I sold my property, that would go with my property, so the next homeowner would have to pay that. But, if you foreclose on my land and my home, if there's a mortgage on it, you have to pay off the mortgage, but you're gonna have money left over to pay the assessment.
The law is actually silent on what the ballot has to say about what the range is gonna be, but my suggestion is I think you ought to make that decision today, decide you're doing. Then we can tell, when we send the ballot out, what their payment is gonna be over the 10 years for a total life. That makes sense to me, because otherwise, if it can't be afforded, the project's gonna die.
And I think it's unusual, we've never done this in Potter County before, and so we turn into, a semi-banker, if you will, and we're lending out, and I would certainly agree with, Becky's comment, that the recourse, if you will, is the lien, against the property, but it's just something very different that we've never
Well,
done.
I'm not exactly sure that's correct. There were roads approved in Valley York that the landowners were assessed.
We did do, it was a slightly different, it's a different method, but that's correct. We had to set up a road, it's called a road district, and improvements were made, and then that cost for that, I think we issued some certificates of obligation to pay for those roads, and I think we did assess the property owners within the boundaries of that road district for for their share of, they reimbursed the cost.
How long was that?
It wasn't that big of an expense, it wasn't an expense this size, so I think it was, I want to say it was 3 to 5 years, I can't remember, it was quite several years ago.
Yeah, but the town was.
Yeah, that's right, there at the time. But it wasn't 10 years, it was 4 or 5, I think. But anyway, so it has been done, this is just a little, and we had to do a vote. There was a more formal process there. In fact, I think we had to actually have it run as like an election would be run.
If you set up a district, it's full of.
So, it was a lot more complicated, but the principle was sort of the same. This is just an easier way to do it because you're dealing with smaller, this is designed for smaller areas than you would have for a road subdivision.
And the original, estimate, turned in, by Sebastian, I believe was for asphalt, and it was well over, it was closer to $300,000. And so we're planning on, I can't remember what they call it, chip seal. We'd be thrilled with anything. We would be thrilled with anything. We literally run an obstacle course. And Donnie Elkins, who's here, has spent countless hours with a blade. I believe there's a farmer rancher that doesn't even have property there, but accesses his property on Ranch Road that comes out with a blade. And I know there are others, I just don't know who they are because I come home and it's been done. And I have no idea who it is.
Can I ask one question? I got, Mr. Wilson said he, of course, provided us a copy of that. And it's based on the $185,000 estimate, and we've got the estimate from Sebastian. Can we readjust that? Can we have a new one of these done? We're starting the new.
Sure, I think
And I guess I'm asking the neighbors if that's okay. It's gonna take it up from 85 to, I believe, 200,000, what you had to call.
185 to 200.
Yeah, because the road is 188, and there's some costs. Keep back, and I don't know if you've seen a copy of this, but if you aren't, I'll get you a copy. So, there's some extra costs for like surveyor, and there's some culvert installation, and that sort of thing. It takes it up to about, I think we've got $200,000 budget.
Real fast. Have you seen the ballot? Are you happy with it?
Yes, I've seen the ballot, yes.
How many people, just a show of hands, are here about this road issue?
Pretty much a courtroom.
Wow. Okay, good. Well, thank you for showing up. I think Commissioner Church wanted to say something.
I just want to say that unless there's some other comments, that I really appreciate the way this community came together, worked together to put this proposal before us. I think it's a real positive. I'd like to see that in our county. It's a beautiful part of our county, and I think it has a real potential of growth and more people, but this road is keeping anything from happening. And if we're interested in growth and in people moving to our community, I think this is one step towards it. So I'd support it, and I'd like to move that we accept this and present this ballot to the property owners of Bishop Ranches with a payout over 10 years.
Second.
Commissioner, just a quick comment. Have there been any other discussions, anything less than 10 years, any 5 years in terms of payoff, 7? In my opinion, I think 10 years is a long duration, but would certainly open that to the residents.
So I mean, my part alone is gonna be over $15,000. And so, I'm already paying $1,500 a month in, taxes, and that doesn't even count insurance. So I'm gonna have to pay that in addition to my regular county taxes. And I think most everybody here is willing to do whatever, but we are improving the county's property. And, all we're asking from the county is just a lump.
Yeah.
We're not asking for them to do it, because that's not how it works. We'd love for them to, but that's not how it works. So we're just asking for a loan, and I really don't think 10 years is that awful long.
The first
I
one?
think most,
Let me,
Everyone here would agree.
I'd like to answer a little bit. There has been talk at these meetings, like what length of time? And, shorter time periods were brought up and, of course, they would prefer to keep it at 10. And I'm here to, I feel like I'd like to represent them, say that 10 years is what they'd like.
Motion's on the floor. David, you have something?
I was just gonna say, we were talking about, if you were wondering about the question of interest, you can't charge interest for the first 2 years of the loan. So, if you're interested in doing that, you don't have to charge interest. But you can't do it for 2 years.
And Commissioner Church, just one final comment. I'm remembering when Sebastian made his presentation to the court, there was thought around the county taking on this work because it would be cheaper than really taking it out for bid. Is that a fair assessment?
I don't know, you have to ask them.
I think Sebastian's, my recollection, Sebastian said he thought y'all could handle it.
We can.
Yeah, and
That's the way
I didn't hear him talk about saving costs. I think Sebastian said, I think we can do it.
Well, I think it'll be a whole lot cheaper for us to do it.
That's the comment. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand, please. That's 5-0. Thank you very much.
And Dave, will the court be kept informed in terms of the ballots, how many we get back?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get, so the procedure is, first thing I'm gonna do, I'll provide an updated cost to them, and I'll ask them to do me a new breakdown, proportionate share of this cost, and they're also said they would provide us a list of the names and addresses. Then we've got 10 days to send out by certified mail to all the property owners, and then they would self-addressed envelope notes sent back to us, or sent back to Julie, and Julie will tabulate it. So it's a majority of what the return ballots that determine what we want.
Okay, and then after that, when does it start? When do they start working on it?
That's up to the road grade, I guess.
There's nothing in the law.
We're on a 30-day timeline, so once we send ballots out, then they have 30 days to return. Yes.
Is it 30? I thought it was a very, very, very short period.
Well, it's 10 days for us to get it to you guys, ballots, and then 30 days from today for y'all to.
Everybody has 30 seconds. 30 seconds to fill that out.
Right, it's, all you gotta do is check it, put it in an envelope and drop it in mail, you don't even have to put a stamp on it, so, okay?
Thank y'all for being here.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Good turnout.
Okay, we'll go back to number 1, approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes of the August 24th, 2015 Potter County Commissioners Court meeting, and approval of the minutes of the September 3rd and September 8th special meeting Commissioners Court. A motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed?
I'm in favor, Judge, of the 24th and the 8th. I'll abstain on the 3rd since I was not present.
Oh, okay.
Just for the record.
Okay, number 2, budget amendments. To consider and act upon the approval of budget amendments for the current fiscal year and to authorize the county auditor to prepare a budget amendment effective 9/30/15 to make any necessary transfers for year end. Transfers will be made within departments whenever possible, otherwise contingency will be used.
I would like to ask for a change on the first amendment, where we have 10,000 going into general operating expenses of the district attorney's office. We have to move 1,000 of that into their travel account, leaving 9,000 in their general operating expenses.
So 1,000 in travel.
Yes, and then the general operating.
Carrie, what is, caused them to go over budget in their general operating?
Basically, their subscriptions, it was confusion on contracting with Westlaw. And that was the main cause when we were invested.
Would you please turn them?
And is there a process of going through budget? I know this has happened a couple of times, maybe this year, even last year, to monitor that?
We do monitor it, for a lot of these bills like subscriptions, we don't know the expense is out there until the bill hits and they've already received the product, same thing with the credit card. They can come to the website.
And then item 2, the software for JPs, is that for their new package?
Actually, this is for the additional they were able to move forward quicker than they anticipated. We actually had this budgeted in next year, but they would like to go ahead and get it ordered now if they could, since they are ahead of schedule.
Okay.
Make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the budget amendments and authorize the county auditor to prepare a budget amendment effective 9/30/15 to make any necessary transfers for year end.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. All in favor, 5-0. Thank you. Vouchers, to consider and act upon the approval of the payment of vouchers processed by the county auditor's office for the period of August 19, 2015 through September 9, 2015. Check numbers 164183 through 164535, and wire transfers from 599 to 607. In the amount of $2,847,612.28. Motion for discussion, please.
I move we approve the payment of vouchers as presented.
Second.
Second.
I have one question, just one for Mike. Mike, do you have a copy of the vouchers? This is back on the wire transfers, and I'm sure that there's an explanation for it, but it stuck out like a sore thumb. Page, hang on, yes. Some supplies for the district course building, and it's entitled New Pig. Just curious, why you would call an employee?
They're called pigs. What they are is they absorb water, with all the water infiltrates into the building, we put them around to.
See, I knew there was an explanation. Okay.
I do have one question, page 15 of 46, check number 164372. So this is the fire truck, $375,000. That's the one that was slated the current fiscal year that we're in. We just haven't, it's taken a while to get it.
Yeah, they build those from scratch, so we approved it up, I believe, in October of last year. It's just
Okay, and on that same page, check number 164378, Dell Marketing. It's a 25 monitor, $8,000 for the district attorney. I'm just interested to know what type of monitor for $8,000.
It's about 24 monitors, I think.
Oh, it's 24 in totality?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, not one, okay.
Not one very large monitor.
Okay. You never know, you have to confirm. Okay, that's all the questions.
Right. Okay, any other questions? A motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Very much. And for insurance report, to recognize the insurance fund report, pays or anything unusual you want to discuss. Okay, so recognized. Number 5, online legal subscriptions, to consider and act upon the following. A contract to provide online legal research services for the public through the Law Library patron plan from Westlaw and LexisNexis, with subscriptions paid from fees collected as part of court costs. And B, selection of a provider for the internet legal research for Parker County users.
This is one of the sheets that I left for y'all this morning. First of all, on the wall library subscriptions, I got with both the vendors, and they are currently both providers for us, and I asked them to put together a plan that would include everything that we're currently getting in print and put it all into an electronic version. And I did sent it out to several attorneys to get them to look at, to make sure it was a good plan. And these are the prices that they've come back with. And I guess really, y'all make a decision, if y'all do want to continue doing the law library online services, how many users you would like to go with the Westlaw product. They do offer several.
Is there a reason why we use both LexisNexis and Westlaw? I'm just curious if someone can tell me, Scott.
Well, as far as the law library, it has to do with what some of the providers provide services that others don't. For instance, LexisNexis is the provider for all the Matthew Bender forms, like the Texas Litigation Guide, the Texas Transaction Guide. You can get those on Westlaw. So a basic library is still going to have some kind of form books, and I think LexisNexis is a little more robust in that regard than Westlaw is. And as far as the ability to search case law and statutes, that tends to be more a question of preference on the part of lawyers, but about the same.
This is probably a stupid question, but what's the difference between 2, 3, and 4 users? I mean, does it just mean computers that have this on it? Or
That's the number.
offices that have it?
What it's gonna mean is the number. So we'll have 4 computers, for example.
But in one location? Do we ever have 4 in there at a time?
No. However, you might have, if our plan, our plans, our Carrie's idea is to move our law library services to the public library. So, because that makes sense. I mean, there's more public, what I like best about it is the public library is open more hours than the county law library is. But my point is, if you do move it there, theoretically, you might have more users public library than you would at the county law library.
So I would almost guarantee it.
Yeah,
that you have one.
but I think you start off with 2, I think. My feeling is that's gonna be an added going forward, at least for now. And then the library will, if this works out, the library can kind of tell us, boy, we should have a lot of people. You know, can we add on to this subscription? So we're counting on them to kind of help us monitor how that's actually serving the public.
So Carrie, what are the savings taking this from print to electronic? I mean, I see at the bottom this annual difference. I don't know if that's just based on if there's any user formula in there. What's our savings that we expect to get?
Currently, in the law library, we're spending about $120,000 a year on subscriptions. That's print and online, because we occupy both. For this would, even if you went with a 4-user plan, it would take it down to 60. So it's going to cut it in half.
But for the subscription okay, so 42 I'm just looking at column 1, year 1, the LexisNexis, and then the Microsoft Office, so 42, and then Westlaw 38.
Actually, if we can just look at the law library section first, the upper section.
Okay.
Where the LexisNexis is 21,636, and then your choice of Westlaw, even if you went with the 4 users, that 41,462, you still get just over 60,000 a year.
Okay.
I need a motion. Somebody would like to do that.
Have we talked with the public library about doing this, and they're receptive to it?
They are working on an interlocal agreement and memorandum of understanding.
How soon could that happen?
We're working on, we've got a draft of it done already, and I'm gonna make fine tunings, and of course, we have to send it over to the city, but they're extremely receptive.
So you think 2 users are good at this time? And then if we need to increase, we could do that?
Yeah, I kind of think that's, I think that's the way to go right now.
I make a motion that we approve legal research services for the public in a partnership with LexisNexis and Westlaw for 2 users. And subscriptions paid from fees collected as part of court costs.
Second?
Okay. Are we gonna specify how many users?
I
You should
indicated
just-
two in the
I know, I
motion.
mean, but that's why you have 4 on there.
Well, you can choose 2, 3, or 4. There's a difference of $10,000 a year between the two.
And choose what's in my motion.
2 for the motion. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Thank you very much.
I didn't take action on B, I don't know if that's the next step.
And just to give you a little background on item B, we did change to LexisNexis from Westlaw 3 years ago. And Westlaw has been contacting us, they wanted our business back, so, we've talked to them extensively over the last 3 or 4 months, and these are the numbers on their final proposal. They're very close in cost, so, I would like for attorneys to speak on which they think is a better program. Because it is very close in cost.
I tell you, I've talked to, the young lawyers don't really care, because they've used both. The old lawyers like Westlaw, because that's what they've used, and they're.
So what do you like, Dave? What do you consider?
I like the cheap.
Dave, I like the way you think.
And I have no problem with Lexis, I like it just fine, it's got some great features that I really like about it. But man, if it's Westlaw saves us some money, I'm for Westlaw.
The only question I have is there's a specific line item for Microsoft Office for Lexis. Is that not a need for Westlaw, or that's built into their price?
Westlaw does not offer that. That is one, it's a system that kind of helps you when you bring in word processing. You can tie into the research system and it'll do some things automatically for you, check some lawyer things for you automatically. It's pretty nice, but I don't know if that many people use it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's not
That is
I've found it's not
one-
as intuitive as perhaps it was sold, so I don't wind up using it a lot, but it is an available feature. It's kind of nice for those who are technologically savvy enough to use it.
So what about for a novice user just doing legal research, which has a easier user experience? If I don't really know what I'm looking for and I'm not a lawyer, what helps me? Is there anything that hovers and says,
Yeah.
this is statute, that, you know?
Overall, I think Dave's probably right. You can find what you need on either service. It really boils down to the preference of appearance and some of the search algorithms that the two use. Again, I'm an old lawyer, so I grew up using Westlaw, and I find it a little easier.
We grew up using books.
Well, yes, I grew up using West books. But yeah, again, it really is kind of a personal preference thing. I would be hard pressed to say one is absolutely better than the other. You'll find people who will swear that Westlaw is better than Lexis, and you'll find people who like Lexis better.
Like, for example, I think Court of Appeals uses Lexis. The couple of the big law firms in town, one uses Westlaw, one uses Lexis. I mean, so it's just, it's really kind of.
On the other hand, federal courts use Westlaw.
Yeah, so it's just kind of what your preference.
So back in the day, your form of tablet was really made of stone, wasn't it?
That's right, stone maps and person.
But so for a novice user, I've not seen either system, so I don't know in terms of what the experience is on the screen. What would you,
Both have available what's called a natural language function, where you just type in a question, and what it does is try to isolate keywords in your question and relate that to a search. So when I've used I don't use a lot of natural language searches because I've been doing it a while, but when I use them, overall, I would say I probably get more relevant results or returns with Westlaw than with Lexis.
Carrie, have you logged into either one of them? Be interested to know what you thought.
Just put the numbers on.
I move that we approve the use of Westlaw for our internet legal research provider for Potter County.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much.
And I would like to say that that lower our annual cost by about $10,000.
Excellent.
I like saving money.
Yeah.
Taxpayers. It's a good day
Just that.
so far. What did you say this week?
Number 6, is it called Savins Maintenance Grant Contract to consider and act upon the approval of the statewide automated victim notification service grant contract with the Office of Attorney General of Texas and to authorize Judge Tanner to sign the service agreement, renewal notice, and maintenance contract. Carrie.
This is a grant that we had for probably at least 15 years. The money actually doesn't flow through the county anymore, it's paid directly to our vendor, but, it takes a team, we have people out of the sheriff's office, local attorney's offices, our team, to get these notifications out, but, it has worked very well for us.
I make a motion that we approve the statewide automated victim notification service grant with the Office of Attorney General of Texas and to authorize Judge Tanner to sign the renewal notice and maintenance contract.
Motion and second, all in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0, thank you very much. Number 7, elections to consider and approve addendum to the order for early voting to inform the court regarding the vote center location for judges for November 3rd election. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good.
Good. Well, there's an addendum to what you guys did last month, and it's because Bushland ISD decided they wanted to throw in with our election as well. And they would like to have an early voting site in Bushland the second week. What we did to keep it budget neutral for everybody is we are not going to be doing mobile voting in this November election. Instead, we will be offering this site in Bushland at First Baptist Church in Bushland the second week, and it's during the same hours that will be open for the branch voting locations in town.
That's the change.
That's the change.
This was just all for
And the second one, the second part is information about where our polling sites will be. And there is a change versus what we originally said we would have for our vote centers because we were unable to vote at Cash Saver Plus in this election due to a conflict of interest. So we replaced that site that is at I-40 and Bell with Bell Avenue Church of Christ, which is just slightly north of I-40 and Bell. Other than that, everything is the same. I just wanted you guys to be in the loop.
Well, then just a quick question. When will a sample ballot be available?
As of Friday, the sample ballots are here. Now they're not online yet. We'll be having that set up by district, where a voter can go in and put in their address and it'll pull up the ballot for them. But as far as sample ballots, we have them in our office at this time.
But even the sample ballot that's available on our Potter County webpage?
It's not there yet.
Yes. Will that be on this Friday as well? Just the general?
That will be it should be this week. And we actually have 32 different ballots for this one. There's actually 6 ballot styles because we've got the constitutional, and that's on everybody's. Then there are people who are in the city, and there's the referendum that the city has on there. There's a liquor option election that is for folks that live in JP1. And then if you fall in the Bushland ISD area, then there is a tax rollback measure that's on there. So it's all measures, no candidates, but with that, it does create a good number of ballots.
I've just had several in the community ask about the specific language on the downtown vote, and I've not seen the language myself, so I certainly don't speak to it. And so I often refer them to the website and say, she'll have a ballot up there.
I will, yes, I will. And I would quote it, but I'll probably quote it wrong, so I'd rather not.
I need a motion for the amendment, please.
I make a motion that we approve the order for early voting to inform the court regarding vote center locations for judges for November 3rd election.
The motion is second. All in favor, raise your right hand. That was 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 8, Randall County Appraisal District to consider an act upon submitting a nomination for a board member of the Colorado Rangers President District Board of Directors for a 2-year period. Got this letter, like I always do for District Shoulders, from the Colorado Randall President District. One of our members does not want to renew. That would be Mr. Lenny Sadler. Everybody else is on board for another 2 years or whenever the time comes up, so. We need to consider someone. If anybody has someone today, that's fine. We'll submit that with the resolution next meeting. Or we have until the next meeting to come up with someone.
Just pass it on to the next meeting.
Anybody in mind? Anybody?
Just a question, do we know how often they meet?
Twice a year.
Twice a year?
Where's Sherry? 4 times a
Oh,
year?
Sherry, 4 times.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, 4 times a year, that's what I'm saying.
And Sherry, what are the primary governance, I know the appeal, so if someone has an appeal on their assessment, I think that doesn't go to this board?
No, this is just the board that, kind of like you guys govern Potter County, they govern the appraisal district.
How long are those
Approve the
meetings?
budget. 30 minutes, 45 minutes, like tops, sometimes it just been 15, 20.
Are they in the day or the evening, do you know?
8:30 in the morning.
Okay. Just because sometimes those are, as we're fielding candidates, those are often the first questions. When and how long and that kind of thing.
We have one in the morning.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll table that till next time. We'll have a name for them. Number 10, fiscal year 2015-2016 adoption of tax rate. Set the Potter County property tax rate for the fiscal year beginning October 1. I've just right here, did you do this, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and just read it, is that okay?
Sure, and here's the, this is the legal language required for the motion.
The order setting Potter County property tax rate fiscal year 2015-16, okay? It says 14. On the 14th day of September 2015, the Commissioners Court of Potter County, Texas convened in a public meeting with proper notice given pursuant to Texas Tax Code and the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, with the quorum present, and took the following action. It is ordered that the tax rate for Potter County property taxes for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2015 be set at 0.63306 per 100. That is for maintenance and operation. 0.3096 per 100 valuation for debt service. 0.3096 per 100, sorry. For a total of 0.66402 per 100. This tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate. This tax rate will effectively be raised by 4.75% and will raise taxes for maintenance and operations on a $100,000 home by approximately $30. And I will need you to just write.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
My name is, you gave me a new name. Nanny. Nanny. A big cold works. Okay.
You are Nanny.
I am. So, with that being said, I need a motion to approve this. I will make the motion. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.66402, which is effectively a 4.75% increase in the tax rate.
I'm going to second that.
It should be 0.66360. Did you
I
say?
said zero, I said 0.66.
That's kind of effective. I guess the zero down to zero
It's
does.
okay.
Makes a
Zero.
lot of difference.
It does. That's my point, it's important. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? 41. Okay. Number 12, Constable, this should be precinct 2. To set a bond pursuant to local government code, section 86.002, for the new constable for precinct number 2. It should be 2, right?
Yes.
So, Dave, what is the usual bond?
I waited, I forgot to bring my sheet that had that on there. It's somewhere between $500 and $500 is the lower amount. I can't remember what the other amount is. I'm gonna say $1,500.
What was the bond that we established for the previous?
That's what I was wondering. I don't know what it is for the
I
other.
think it was
Two. I can run upstairs. I can run upstairs. Like, I think it was two, was it?
I know we said it at the end.
Pass this for a minute until we find out. Okay, we'll come back to that.
Sorry, I've been doing that.
Thing number 13 is Sheriff School Resource Officer Agreement to consider and act upon approving renewals of the agreements with River Road ISD and Richland ISD to provide a school resource officer. Sheriff. Are these the same officers as we've? Good.
Yes, ma'am. We were looking through it the other day on another issue and, the wording, there needed to be a new agreement with the cost of changes in the salaries and stuff. So I had to rewrite that, and we also added some, the only big change that will be, or the two big changes will be the cost for the officer service versus our cost and their cost, and then we added, number 11, or number 10, in there about their duties, to enhance their safety. The school district will add its expense hiring on extra officers to assist the SRO if attendance is expected, or exceeds 1,000, participants, and then for every 500 above that, it would, require another officer. And the reason why we did that is because we had an issue the other day where at a football game, they were expecting 2,500 from the opposing school to show up, and we had one officer out there. And that is just a safety issue that we don't want to put that guy in. So there were several of us that went out there and helped with that. We didn't have the crowd that they expected, but anytime they have an expectation or rumors that they're gonna have somebody like that, we want them to be mindful of that. That was brought up, it was in their contract that they would do that, and they chose to ignore that, so we just kind of put some more leverage in there.
And the cost, the number 11, 75, and 25, is that the same as last year? The cost sharing?
All of that will be the same, it's just the increase in salary and stuff will have to be rejected with the new rates for officer.
And Sheriff, last year, was it the first year that we did this, or was it 2 years ago? This?
We've had it for 3 years and pushed on in 2 years.
Because I think their overall mission, I mean, their agreement is good. I mean, there's an absolute reason to have them there. I just was interested if we would ever get anything back in terms of goals or objectives or what they felt like they accomplished in the school year, since we were really collaborating with them.
The SRO in Richland actually made up a survey and sent it out to all the teachers out there. I don't know that it really had a rating between 1 and 5, but if you were to read through those, they were all 5. On the impact that he's had with the children out there, the kids out there. Same with the guys out there. The response we get from not only staff, but from parents is phenomenal. They love their guys out there, and they're considered part of their family out there. And we've had lots of parents that call, and those guys answer calls even within the areas of the school district, even after hours, parents are calling.
I'm hearing nothing but good about both of them, and it's good that they're the same officers, because these kids can relate to them, they know who they are, they know who they can relate to them.
And we've had several that may have some handicap challenges mainly, and they have mainly of going to schools, and that officer's has been able to establish a rapport with those kids, and can go over and talk to them, calm them down, and make a productive day out. And so that's kind of his forte. He's on their range level.
He's very young.
But he does a good job. He's just, he just knows how to connect with the kids. It's a big plus. We have one of the things we have is we have a reserve deputy that and she spent 12 years in the schools with AISD. And so she helps out with me as well. That helps us a lot.
I'll make a motion that we renew the contract resource officer agreement for the River Road ISD officer, the Bushland ISD provider.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. 5-0, thank you. Okay, we go back to number 12.
Yes, it's $1,500, Julie checked, that's what you said.
Okay.
I make a motion that we set the bond pursuant to local government code section 86.002 for the new constable of precinct 2 at $1,500.
Second.
Church, got that one. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. 5-0, thank you very much. Number 14, Veterans Highway again. To consider an act upon an agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for a marker for the Veterans Highway designation. So Dave, this is something we have to do in addition to the resolution and everything else.
Yeah, we really don't have to do this across reading, but I wanted you to see a copy of it, so basically what happens is we've got the resolution, and I want to get you all to sign a new version of the resolution because they didn't like the wording of the last one. Thus proving that no good deed goes unpunished. What we'll do is once we get the resolution signed, we send it to TxDOT. Once TxDOT is approved and they want an agreement with us for the cost of the sign, they send us a copy of the proposed sign and also the cost of it. So I think I'll wait. I just wanted you to see it today, but I think I'll wait until we get the resolution and go hit back to TxDOT, and they just ask us to sign their name saying, yeah, we'll pay the money. So you want to, so you notice the blanks are not filled, but we just plug in the amount of money.
So what was in the language of the previous that they were had some issues with?
Designated?
It was I'm gonna quit writing about it. It was very minor editorial changes. They just didn't like the word. They literally did not like the word that we used designated. They wanted to use name or something like that. And so, it's just been a long process. It should be. But I've got it in the form they would like. And so since everybody signed it, I'll ask everybody to sign that again, and that'll put this project kind of on track.
Okay, so we'll bring this back in 2 weeks to do the agreement.
I don't know if it'll be that quick. Whenever TxDOT gets its approval, I'll send a resolution into them, and then once we get that approval back, then I'll bring this back for approval. But
we agreed to pay for what's done.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay, number 15, criminal justice needs assessment. To discuss the 2013 jail systemic analysis plus current evaluations of the criminal justice system and to take any action necessary. Okay.
We thought, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not we need to do some audit or some kind, and some information's been floated around about that. Some we've got, and some's coming from the public, and so we just kind of thought we'll put it back on the agenda. There was some interest the last time we met and discussed this, I think, at tax rate hearing. There might be some interest in doing some kind of an audit, what the framework of that would be, or the value of that would be, I don't know. But we thought rather than let this issue kind of float around, we'll just bring it back to you. I think you've got some information about the audits that have been done already. One was done as part of the long-range planning to kind of address the jail system kind of in a broad stroke way. And of course, the other one is from the open government group. They did, just focused solely on misdemeanor cases in 2012. And then there's also kind of our own internal assessment, which has kind of different conclusions from the open government groups. So I guess we just put it there in case the commission will discuss this.
And I guess to be more clear, it's to the numbers that the ACLD put out, so it was our previous audit look. And I think there was some disagreement with the numbers that were being skewed. So could you explain that a little bit of a visit on that particular issue in respect to what they presented and what you've already done?
I've never been presented or had an opportunity to look at their raw data, so I don't really know exactly what they looked at. The numbers that we presented, and presented a couple of y'all with PowerPoint that sums it up, are taken directly from the Spillman system and an analysis run of what happened in 2012. Those numbers show that there were 2,330 people booked into the Potter County, who passed through the Potter County Detention Center in 2012, who were charged with a Class A or B misdemeanor. Now, as in talking with Chrissy over in ESSO and looking at it, that includes people who also had felony charges, who also had parole violation holds, who also had ICE holds, that kind of thing. That's the total number of people who went through the jail charged with either a Class A or B misdemeanor. They wound up spending something, if I remember right, like 12,270 days. Again, including those who had other issues in which they were charged. So what that winds up with at 52.55 a day, the rate for incarceration that we're currently running is a figure somewhere around $907,000, $908,000. Certainly, with that said, we certainly are interested in anything we can do to keep folks who don't need to be in jail out. There's liability issues, there's cost issues, there are a host of issues that say there are people you don't really want in the jail who might wind up there. On the other hand, there are people in the jail who probably need to be in the jail as a matter of public safety concerns. And so we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater if we go through this. Overall, I think the idea is if it's going to get a closer look, I think it needs to be a systemic look, not just at what we're doing with misdemeanors. Because the fact of the matter is misdemeanors are a very small portion of the folks who are out in the jail. As of this morning, it's somewhere in the 12.6% range of the folks in the jail are misdemeanors. The majority are pretrial felons, people who are paper ready to go to TBC, that kind of thing. So if we're going to look at what's going on at the jail, I think it probably needs to be a bigger picture look. So, does that help?
And if the commission did decide to proceed forward with the systemic analysis, if you will, Scott, I'm assuming you and Randall and the judges, I mean, would really all be key to developing the RFP, I'll let the right thing, or RFP, because I'm assuming that would have to go out for bid and for whoever has that skill set to complete an audit of that nature.
Right.
Because I know the audit that we're referring to back in 2013, if I remember right, that was part of the architectural study included those elements.
Right.
So I think it was helpful to help set the framework, but from a systemic point of view, I'd agree. It may do us well, especially timing wise,
Sure.
as we're starting to look at some of our infrastructure.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, as I stand here today, I don't know who does this.
And that was the question I'm gonna ask, would it necessarily say going out for bid? I'm not sure who actually sort of gave that expertise that does it. I know that there are those throughout the state that principally do that as a function of their duties are. So would that necessarily?
What is it we want to get out of this thing? I mean,
I'm not sure.
You gotta have a question before you go for an answer.
Yeah, it would, yeah, and again, I think, first of all, there has to be buy-in from all the people who are involved. If, you know, for instance, let's say Randall and I go, okay, sure, and the judges say, go fly kite, we're probably not gonna accomplish much of anything useful. I think it would involve some discussion amongst us about what kind of data are we looking for? Not only what kind of data is gonna be input, but what are the results? What kind of analysis are we looking to receive in return? And of course, I have no idea what it's gonna cost either. So there's that to consider too.
I guess some of the analysis that we're looking at is for this, looking at the fact that we're getting formula. Looking at a different formula than was actually we were using 2 or 3 years ago. It was predicated on the number of incarcerations. Then we're looking at the number of all, not only the administration of jails, the footprint, and all that being conducive to that number. And if we are high, if we are actually looking at what we had predicated for 3 years ago, for example, then should we not look at something that going out in the odd years, it may not be elevated to that level any longer because we're not looking at the number of incarcerations. That's one viewpoint. Another viewpoint is that the misdemeanors may be becoming more enhanced because there are a number of those that are incarcerated with drug use that we may want to get out, but because of the man-made drugs that are being positioned out there, it's some nasty stuff out there. It's probably leading more toward a higher level of misdemeanor and possibly even felonies or some dangerous individuals. So,
and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that part. I think at this point, we don't know yet what the impact of our efforts to try and divert mentally ill offenders is going to be. I'm anxious to see how that works. I know right now, the numbers that concern me the most, it does not give me much pause to have somebody locked up because of DV assault when they're dangerous to their significant, their intimate partner. On the other hand, if somebody's in on criminal trespass, that gives me some cause for concern. Now, I will grant you, this morning, looking at the ones that are probably 10 people in there who are in on felonies, some of them relatively significant, like aggravated robbery, kidnapping, things like that. Those are people who may, in the grand scheme of things, be an appropriate case to be in jail. But I am anxious to see what happens with the mental health diversion docket and see what that does too. So right now, again, I guess it kind of goes to what you're saying. The sand may be shifting as we speak.
But I think to Commissioner Church's question of what are we looking for, I think it's just an evaluation of the system, the criminal justice system. And I think Scott brings up a really valid point that it's inclusive of everything that falls into that system and systematically. So even in terms of infrastructure, to me, that conversation really does go hand in hand and is hand in glove to what we should be potentially planning for. TAC has indicated that there are 2 to 3 that specialize in this in the state of Texas from a neutrality perspective. They don't have any skin in the game. They're just used to going in and evaluating these processes. So I'm confident if we got to a point of truly defining the RFP, which to me is where that's really where all the detail is, then I feel like we would have those to bid. But I think your point above everything is there has to be true buy-in for all the players here, or we're not doing right by the taxpayers to go out and spend this money for an audit if we don't have that initial buy-in up front. And Judge, I don't know who would lead that conversation here on the county level. If that's you as our judge, if that's Scott as our county attorney, if it's one of our district judges. I think that's the piece that we often miss is who's gonna take this conversation and continue it if that's what we feel like we should be doing.
I agree. I don't know the answer.
But I think there is also some concern, I think, as far as the judge's office. I think we're all wanting to save as much money as we can and continuing to do due diligence. But if there is a hint of issue of questioning, I think that is something that we may want to look at, given we do it ourselves rather than being get pressed upon us from the outside.
So what do you propose? What are we asking today then?
I think the reason to put it on the agenda was to begin the conversation. I wouldn't say that we necessarily, or the county attorney's office has a particular proposal in mind. We will certainly, both in our prosecutorial role as well as our role as representative of the body, we'll do what we need to do. There are, I think, as far as to your question, who takes the lead, or I guess your question about who takes the lead, I guess that's just a pragmatic question. Ultimately, from a perception perspective, there's the question of if any one of the players in the role in the system, be it my office, judges, defense lawyers, whoever may have a real working stake in it, if one of them takes the lead, there is always the potential that the argument will be made, well, we see this as an agenda-driven thing, to say one group's doing a great job and everybody else is not. I think, ultimately, if you're going to do a study or whatever it's going to be, audit, whatever it's going to be, I think at the end of the day, it'll have to come from the court. If for no other reason, then you're going to have to sign a check for it.
Yeah. And I think that's where TAC can help us see. And maybe we'll have a conversation with them about how it's been done in other places if this kind of study's been done.
Value in that.
Yeah, and I don't want to fall into there's a lot of, it's going to sound harsh, but it's what it is. A lot of divisiveness that's been going on in our community. And I don't want to be a part of it if that's what it is. And trying to find something that isn't really there just to have an issue for an upcoming election or whatever. And it concerns me.
I'd certainly want to know before we even considered doing this what the cost is going to be, what the results we're looking for, and I'd like to see what other studies have come up with before we get involved in any of this.
I think that's true, and it's good, and it's moving very positively. I think also we need to entertain the conversation with those stakeholders, and that's something that George is when it comes back to the board. So if this is going to be done, then certainly probably going to have to jump off the bench and go ahead and initiate a conversation to see if it is something that is valid out there to pursue.
Do I have a motion for someone to go forward and talk to TAC, or?
Well, I think
that can be done informally.
Yeah, I think we
I don't
can do
think
that
we need a motion to do that. That might be a discussion point for a future agenda item. Yeah.
Homework.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so no action taken today then?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, number 16, county buildings firearms policy on allowing handguns. To consider an act upon prohibiting open carry of handguns in the courthouse, the course building, and Senate building, and authorizing the posting of new signage to comply with changes in the law.
There really is a preliminary issue that's kind of involved in this, and that is that you know that the law, legislators now passed law that allows open carry in certain handguns in certain circumstances. There's still some language that allows certain locations to say, no, you can't carry a gun in here. You know, we don't want any reverses. Now, one of those is courts buildings. And the language of the, this is complicated, so I'm trying to make it simple as possible. That gets complicated. But essentially, as you know, we already have language posted on our buildings that says, you know, you can't bring a concealed handgun. Well, the way the law has been done by the legislature, if we want to continue that policy for open carry, we will have to post an additional sign that says essentially the same thing, except we'll use the words, it'll have a different statute reference, and it'll use the words concealed carry, but you have to do both of them. Now, where it gets complicated is that the way we read the statute, the way the legislators passed it, we may still keep people from carrying a handgun into the Santa Fe building, into the courts building, and into the courthouse, because there is a court in it. And the law, the way we interpret the law, it applies to the premises where a court is located. Now, you don't have to do that. The law says, not courtroom, or it talks about a bill. Anyway, you do not have to adopt that policy if you don't want to. You can just limit the policy to allow people to carry open carry except into an actual courtroom. And some would argue that's what the law says. There's an Attorney General opinion out now, request for that, where someone is asked to clarify what the legislature means. But the way we interpret the statute right now is the law has not changed in regard to what restrictions you may pass to keep the person carrying a handgun on the premises.
Part of the confusion is section 4603 of the Penal Code, which deals with locations where carrying is prohibited, says that the premises of a court is one of those. And the definition of premises is building or portion of a building. Okay? So what I can tell you is different counties around the state are approaching it differently. A number of counties, I think I should back up. The bills on open carry and the notices and all that did not change the 4603 where it's absolutely prohibited that you carry a gun with certain exceptions. So as far as building where a court is, at least certainly a courtroom, that much hasn't changed. That's still the same. Now some counties are taking the approach that we're just going to limit carry to the actual courtroom itself. We're going to post signs there, and otherwise we're going to let people carry. Other counties, not so much. Other counties are saying if there's a court in the building, you're not carrying a handgun in here. Now, Dave's right. We are going to have to change our signage either way. There has to be what we call the old 30-06 notice, which is the current notice we have out there, plus 30.07, which deals with open carry, and the signs, there'll also have to be a sign in Spanish. Now, that's another requirement of the new law. But the question, because the Commissioner's Court is responsible for the determination of the use of county property, it falls to you to make the decision about how you want to proceed on that issue.
I'm not advocating this, but this is something I've been thinking of. Who would keep them out of the courtroom if they let them in the rest of the building? You'd have to have security.
Well, our county is a little different because the courts have their own authority to appoint their own bailiffs. Generally, as a general matter of Texas county law, it's still the sheriff, because the sheriff has charge and control of the security of the courthouse. I'm sure he's happy to hear that, but so yeah, like that would be a kind of a hybrid thing. The sheriff is, I'd be the first one to thank the sheriff every day for the security we get in the courthouse. Like some of us, I remember the days when security in the courthouse was Judge Ware looking out in the hallway going, it looks a little sketchy. But yeah. So, but yeah, it would involve, I think, some cooperation between the sheriff and the courts themselves.
So the legislature, true form, they left it up to the counties to, or one funding in the state, or in a sense, leave it up to the counties to do it how they see fit. And the Attorney General ruling, I suspect that is out there right now. That
There's an opinion's been requested. They have issued an opinion on this question. The big problem, I should tell you, the big problem is there's the potential for a lawsuit for which governmental immunity is waived under the new statute, and there would be a grace period to fix your issue. You'd have to get a letter complaining that your signs or your policies are not in compliance with Texas law. You'd have an opportunity to fix that, and if you don't fix it, I think it's $1,000. It's civil penalties largely. $1,000 the first time and $10,000 for everyone thereafter. And the law is not entirely clear on whether Each continuing day is a separate violation. That's an argument that can be made, so it can get expensive.
So is our door big enough for all the signage?
No, we're gonna have to, Mike and the sheriff and I have been kind of discussing that, we're gonna have to have Mike's got a plan, but we're gonna have to have freestanding signs, obviously. I mean, there's physically not room all around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Courthouse. So we'll have to have it posted, but it can be done. It can be done.
So for today, you're looking for action, or are you gonna draft a policy and bring that back to us?
I'm looking for correction.
Nobody want to go.
We can write a policy, but
In reference to making these new signs, will we be able to use courthouse security funds to pay for the signs?
I would think so.
Yes, sir.
May I be heard? I completely agree with everything Scott said, including that I appreciate the security that the sheriff provides at the front door. That's a great asset. As someone who tries cases routinely, and you guys approve my bills for that, you know I do a lot of work over there. There has been occasions when I seriously question my safety coming and going from the courthouse. There's been an occasion, and there's a law that allows a district judge to allow an officer of the court to arm themselves with that specific order, and I've taken advantage of that because of my concerns, because unfortunately the security leaves at 5 o'clock. And if our trial goes to 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I'm responsible for myself coming and going. And currently, I'm required to disarm myself at the car, and that leaves the firearm in the car. As a matter of a suggestion, I would like to suggest that maybe a compromise or something like that would be that the county provide boxes inside the courtroom that allows the person to carry into the building, ensuring their safety to and from where the sheriff isn't necessarily focused. And then you can disarm yourself, because it really doesn't make much sense for me to carry my gun around in the hallway when I can't go into any of the courtrooms where I have to do business.
So you're saying basically have a box deposited at the door of the entry to the
or somewhere. That would be a facilities question, but somewhere. And I personally own some of these boxes I bought from the Randall County auction that I would suggest for defense lawyers anyway, that we be allowed to install those in the defense attorney room in the district court's building. That way you can disarm yourself in private, away from everybody else.
So that means you would be able to carry in the entry level of the Santa Fe, of this court building until you reach the perimeter of the courthouse, per se, courtroom.
Yes, sir. My argument actually is that the law is written, and this is where Scott and I differ. My opinion is that the law says that you could carry into this building, not in this room because it's a meeting of a governmental entity, not into a courtroom, but the district clerk's office, if it were standing alone outside, there would be no question I could carry into and out of the district clerk's office.
I'd like to hear the sheriff on this, and that to me is, sheriff, very common.
And how do you restrict, just an individual, the John Smith walking in with a handgun versus someone that might have professional opinion of why you would need to bring that? Like, how would you distinguish that from the general public of what you might consider an imminent threat, but I can't tell you yes, and he or she no?
Honestly, Commissioner, that's why I haven't written a letter to Scott saying I object to your sign, because I don't know the
Because
answer.
you can't discern.
I would like to protect myself,
Sure.
but I also appreciate that they are doing a great deal of that job. My concern is from the doorway to the car.
Sure.
Like, I'm nothing to hide.
Put you in the hot box here.
You're as tall as that clown, we won't know.
Almost as well, you heard all this conversation, and what are your thoughts as a law enforcement officer as opposed to the courthouse?
I think what's going on now is working for us. We have to make the decision before January, because that's when the open period comes into effect, and that has to be posted before then, so we can warn the public. I understand his concerns as well. But if he has a letter from one court that says he's authorized to bring it into his court, what happens if the other court says, no, you can't, and we're back to which one, and again, verbiage of how it works is where, and all that kind of stuff is, does the law allow us to distinguish that, yes, he can, or we can, and, you know, it's really a mess. You have to look at all of that. You know, you ask the same question, if it's, then do we change the security to the courts? Their doors, well, you got 5 over there, however many, 2, 3 here, 1 in the Santa Fe building. So now do you move all your, so do you move all of your checkpoints to each one of those doors, you know, adding more people, or you just do away with it altogether and let the courts handle it, however you want to do it. You know, that again is a decision for you guys to make, unfortunately. Talk to none of the people that work within these buildings. I mean, what do they want?
Yeah.
You know?
I would like to see it prohibited.
I went to Carolyn, how did you feel about someone walking with a gun in your office?
To be clear, that was just one trial. That order is expired.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, and I understand. I'm just trying to distinguish.
So it's working pretty good right now. And,
Alan, come on up. I'm opposed to it, but I don't know how much pull I have. So, Alan, come on up.
It seems to me that any arrangement which would allow someone other than a sheriff's office official or other county
Law
official
enforcement, yeah.
to go past your checkpoint at the doors of the building will greatly complicate your security. If you need to have protection for a defense attorney, then the court should inform the sheriff's department that it is quite likely the court is going to be in session after 5 o'clock, and a request from the court will be made to the sheriff's office, which the sheriff's office is obliged to respond to, and the county will just have to pay for it as a routine part of your court system.
Thank you, Alan.
I think we do stay after when we have late trials, at least that's my understanding of staying.
We're going to check on that. When he rose that question, so we'll check on that. You know, there again, I mean, you never know when a court's going to hang and how long it'll be there. And again, paying the overtime for somebody to hang out there 9, 10 o'clock in the evening for that course too.
No, when I was in law enforcement, we'd have to go to the jail quite often, and of course you couldn't bring the gun up into the jail. You'd have to check it in with a little locker. You'd have your own key, and as you left the building, you open, you got your gun back out. And maybe the easiest situation here, the solution here would be to have little boxes available right there at the door, and you know, check your gun at the door. I don't know if there's room to do that.
There again, I'll probably let Mike do that, talk to you, because he's gonna tell you there's no way you can do that here and in the Santa Fe building, I would imagine, just for the historic purposes. The district courts, yeah, you could probably do that.
You could do freestanding ones, you don't have to, you know.
Well, somebody grab the bolt now.
Now
I've got, instead of 1 gun, I've got 10.
Yeah, I knew the script.
It never happened at the city jail.
No, we just left it there.
So Dave, are we allowed to just vote today to prohibit open hearing?
Well,
The policy?
To extend adopt the policy that you can post signs on those street corners, that said, as of January 1st, what would you suggest?
Yeah, one thing I should point out that is clear from the new law, unless it's a detention center, a jail, or a place where court is being held, the only place now that otherwise the government can prohibit carry in the building is the actual room where a meeting is taking place that is subject to the Open Meetings Act and is properly noticed. So So the other county buildings we have are an issue of a horse of a whole different
Right,
color.
we're talking about the three, right, Santa Fe, the buildings with courts, Santa Fe, this building. Right, that's correct.
Yeah, we JP three is a courts building, yeah.
True, that's right, that's right. Yes, it would, thank you.
So you would like action today, Dave, or you would like to just get direction and bring back a policy?
We'd like action to, policy to me is either prevent them in buildings, areas, or allow, prevent them in, only in court, actual courtroom. That to me is the choice.
So I would make a motion to prohibit open carry of handguns in the county courthouse, the district courts building, the Santa Fe building, and JP3, and authorize the posting of new signage to comply with the law effective January 1, 2016.
That'll work.
I second that.
And the language itself is set out in the statute, so there's no question about it.
And by the way, if the Attorney General's opinion is something groundbreaking, we will come back to you.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor, raise your hand. 5-0.
And I hope maybe if I'm out of order, Dave, kind of verbally slapped my wrist, but to point to the sheriff, when this law takes effect regarding the school systems, is there conversations that you're hearing or you're involved in as far as what the districts may be considering on allowing in the schools that,
I still hear rumblings of allowing concealed carry, but nobody's taking any action on it. And that's been going on for the last couple of years. There is some specific language in there about school marshals, and they have to have a certain amount of student population, and they have to go through tons of training, but it's also up to the school board on whether they want to allow teachers with concealed carry. We've voiced our concerns with that. I mean, there's pros and cons on both sides of it. But I have a lot more cons than I do pros. Just for the simple fact that if I'm going in there, or one of my deputies is going in there, how do we distinguish who's got what? There's the issues of, you get tired of wearing that, and you're not comfortable doing it, so now you throw it in your briefcase, or the lady puts it in her purse, or they put it in the cabinet when they go down to lunch, or whatever. There's a lot of concerns there. But as far as anything concrete, I've not heard anything locally.
So Scott, do you think that, in hearing that from state legislators, that there are going to be some wording or provisions in there that will or will not give the school systems some clarity as far as moving in that direction?
Well, I think my best guess is that the way the legislature is going to deal with it is to let the colleges be the guinea pigs. Because as it is right now, you can conceal carry on a college campus, but the Board of Regents, or the controlling entity within the college, has significant leeway to declare particular areas on campus to be gun-free zones. And I think the idea is to see how that happens. Now, to be sure, I'm sure in the next legislative session, we're going to see the same thing we saw this time. You're going to have folks who are what we call constitutional carry advocates. That is, you ought to have a right to carry a gun, and you need no license. All you need is a pair of hands to hold it. On the other hand, you're going to have folks on the other side who say this is a significant instrumentality of harm. There needs to be some degree of responsibility associated with gun ownership and gun use. Those forces clash, although not as the legislature, I will say this, the legislature is largely pro-gun. And so if you're predicting what's going to happen, color it pro-gun. Now, what school districts are going to have the authority to do is perhaps also going to be a function of anecdotes. Law is largely made by anecdotes, bad stories. If something bad happens, that may color the way they approach it. If not, there's a significant drive to liberalize the rights of gun owners, to carry whenever and wherever they want.
You have to realize too, that in the school system, or, you know, that if you allow a staff member to carry that, because they have a concealed carry, they've been through an 8-hour class and they've shot 50 rounds, are now qualified. And what's the distinguish of it, you know, and I'm not doubting what they've learned, but are they willing, are they ready to take on an active shooter? And I even presented that, I got chastised in Bushland, but I picked on the teacher there and asked her that same question. You've had Johnny since 9th grade, and something happened between junior and senior year. Johnny's brought you an apple every day for 4 years or 3 years, and now all of a sudden something happened between junior and senior year, and he comes in with a gun and he shoots about 3 kids in your class. Are you going to be able to shoot that same person who has brought you that apple every day? And you kind of establish your rapport with. You know, those are the things that you have to worry about. You know, there's lots of scenarios, like you said. I mean, it's just going to be, it's the bad things that are going to happen that are going to dictate what happens in the office.
Isn't that awful that it's the loss of life that dictates?
It is, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But, you know, there's a lot of places now that you can get a concealed carry over the internet. You don't have to go out and shoot.
Okay, number 17, we're gonna skip that. That was inadvertently left on, from last time. Back to number 18, Mike, you'll be in.
Make you aware on the non-emergency health projects from the 2013 storm. We are down to 1 building, which is like probably 1% of the work being complete, and all will be finished with that. Fairgrounds projects, we have a meeting right after this to discuss those issues. All the budgeted projects that you approved for this fiscal year, we're in our last phase right now in the Santa Fe building of painting. Fire Station 3 project, we had our mandatory pre-bid walkthrough on the 8th. We had 8 general contractors show up for that, which was good, some subs. The road bridge overhead door and sheet metal projects completed, JP3 jury rooms completed. CPS cluster court, we're still waiting on the final cost to come in from the contractor, and I'll get that to you as soon as possible. Baseball stadium, the court directed projects, we did receive some proposals this past week. Currently, they have been under review, redlined them and sent them back to the contractor to revise and bring them back to us. Commissioner review, I know you had asked about that. As soon as we get them back, I'll get them.
Okay, thank you. And we'll present that to the full court. Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, number 19, master plan, sheriff administration office to consider and act upon the following. A, accept the design services contract with architecture for the development of construction documents for a new sheriff's administration facility. And the county judge be authorized to execute the contract on behalf of the county. B, authorize the county to proceed with demolition, environmental, and cleanup of the old jail and rig located on the grounds of the county jail. And C, authorize the initial design work of the fiber network that would serve the IT needs of both the county jail and the proposed sheriff's administration facility. John, Larry, Mike. Sound like 3 stooges.
My purpose today is basically just to tee up the ball for the folks that really know what they're talking about. But last time we spoke to you, we promised to come back to y'all with 1 recommendation, 3 for the price of 1 today, as the judge just read. We've got 3 different project-related recommendations that we'll be presenting to you one at a time. And I'll start with the first one, and that has to do with the negotiated contract that we're bringing to you for your consideration and approval. When we met last, we said that we would get with Architects and hammer out an agreement that we thought was fair, balanced between the two parties that would result in what the county's looking for. And so we began that process with a draft contract that we got from Architects. A small group of us got together and went about most of the concerns that we had with that particular document. And we came to concurrences to the changes that would be made to address those particular concerns. And then following that, we took the document to the full advisory committee, and we went through that process one more time. We went back through the document to make sure that there wasn't anything there, a particular concern that the county needed to address before considering the execution of the contract. And at this stage, it's kind of like the committee has really put an awful lot of work into this, and a lot of those committee members are your own employees. But I want to particularly recognize the citizen representatives who have volunteered to do this work, and they've been a very integral part of what's been going on with this process. So they should be commended for the work that they've put into this. Anyway, I'm hoping that you have a copy of the draft agreement before you. At least you have a kind of brief written description of that contract. As we said when we spoke to you last, what we're looking to do is to finalize the cost for what could become a new sheriff's administration facility. When I say facility, I'm talking about the whole complex, the vehicle maintenance facilities, storage, and everything associated with it. But we also said that we set up the contract such that once all that information was known, the project wouldn't proceed to construction until it was authorized by the Commissioners Court. So there's a red line when you pick it up or not between that phase of development where you completed all the construction documents and that very next phase where you go out to bid for that project. And that project will not go out to bid until so authorized by the Commissioners Court. So that's kind of the way the agreement's been set up. Now, this is a AIA document. AIA is the Association for
American Institute.
There you go, American Institute. So it's a document written by architects for architects, which is why I thought it was really, I think it's really important that this committee did what it did and went through and found, if there was language there that seemed to be a little bit out of balance, they went ahead and leveled the playing field with regard to that language. And Mr. Ursig has been extremely accommodating as far as the committee's concerns have been. I'd say of all the comments and concerns that we had, 100% of it's been changed and modified. So today, we're bringing this document to you for your consideration of approval. And I think at this juncture, what I would like to do with your permission is to turn this back over to the county sheriff. He can tell you a little bit more about the conditions that they're facing. Again, we're not talking about going out to construction today. We're just talking about taking this to the next level of investigation as to the cost to the county. But it may be helpful to have some input from the county sheriff as to the kind of conditions that he's dealing with in the facility today. So, Sheriff.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, to all of you, because I think somewhere along the line, all of you have been involved in this process for the last 5 years. So it seems like it's been that way anyway. So I just want to start with that. But I have a statement that I wrote out over the weekend and worked on it for several hours. And so I'm just going to read this to you, and then I'll leave it with y'all from there. But the building that is being proposed is not just an administration building. This building will house the enforcement division of the sheriff's office as well as the administration division. The administration division is a small part of this building. The sheriff's department does enforcement as well as run a jail, and there are two separate divisions. No matter how many people we have in jail, 200 or 600, it does not affect the enforcement division, which is also going to be housed in this building that's being proposed. Our current building issues Only 1/4 of that building is designed, or was designed as office space. The other 3/4 was a jail and was never intended to be offices. We muster in a drunk tank that has a drain in the middle of the floor that used to be a restroom for the drunk tank. This is the same for the women's locker rooms that currently have now. Both of these drains have been sealed with spray insulation, but that's how we've sealed those off. Our evidence collection and processing and storage is undersized and not designed for what it's being used for. We're using 2 converted jail cells for evidence storage with a wall that's been busted out between the 2 for a door. There's not proper ventilation, and there are days the smell of narcotics being held as evidence will make you sick. We have locker rooms with no showers for the guys to clean up when, after some of the things they've come across in their activities. We should have a workout room, and we don't have one. Security of the building is very lax, and the key locks are wearing out as we go through each and every door that's locked, especially our outside doors. The sewer is an issue that has a Band-Aid on it as well, and the roof still leaks after being repaired. Our mechanical issues are too numerous to mention, but we need vents in the processing area. The charge for the installation of the vents is cost prohibitive due to the fact that they're being installed in a building that was a jail, and which has concrete walls and ceilings, and we have evidence storage in a garage, for goodness sakes. In 1988 is when this building was taken over as the jail administrative offices. At that time, patrol was still housed at 3rd and Grand. They are no longer there, and they are currently inside this building as well. In 1988, there was no training in personnel departments, since there was very little regulations that required one. In 2008, the deputies built the 1,512 square feet area they currently occupy. It houses 4 people and all personnel records. In 2010, the classroom we had was 310 square feet and held a maximum of about 11 people. We built our current classroom between 2010 and 2011. We now have 709 square feet, and we can get a maximum of 35 students in there. We cannot host classes to save money because we don't have the space. In 1988, the records was in an area of 540 square feet. In 1990, they moved to an area of 684 square feet. And in 2005, another area of the jail was demolished by deputies to house the records, where they are currently in an area of 3,168 square feet. And within the next 3 to 5 years, 315 square feet of that space will need to be available for shelving for our records. In 1988, the processing room was a room of 153 square feet. At the present time, we are in 567 square feet. Not only is square footage an issue, the ventilation and basic needs are not adequate. And storage is another issue that we have evidence requirements, length of time we are required to hold by law for the courts. The CID area is where our detectives are. Their officers are so small it is a safety issue when they have people in there to talk to them and investigate the crimes. Right now, this county has piecemealed the building to use as a sheriff's enforcement division. This was done by prior courts and administration, but we've just outgrown what we have and need. The county and the citizens deserve more than what we have. The 1/4 side of the building that was designed as sorts for offices has seen its life. It was built sometime in the late 50s to early 60s. And as stated before, this building houses some administration, our training and personnel division, which has overgrown by the years, and by regulations of the state must have paperwork. We have records of every inmate that must be maintained with the original fingerprint cards. We have a telecommunications division that is in our cramped quarters, and we have a patrol division that is responsible for protection of the citizens of the county, and they need the space for the tools that they are needed to do their job. And for their safety, they need their lockers and showers to clean up in. CID is cramped, and as the county grows, unfortunately, so do crimes, and we need the space to investigate those crimes. The sheriff's office has always tried to be conservative in what we do. We've done our own construction since I've been here and before we were out of room. We've done tons to save the county money. Just a reminder, that this building we are talking about currently has nothing to do with jail populations. We still have all the divisions that are considered enforcement that need to be accomplished regardless of jail populations. We did some checking with some of the other counties, same population or similar population sizes, and got square footage from them last week. Grayson County has a population of 122,353 citizens. Their office space is 10,000 square feet. They've outgrown their facility that was built in 1983, and it has been remodeled once in 2007 and is being considered again. I'm sorry. Their office space is 5,500 square feet, and they had to move their narcotics and CID divisions out to space other than where their building is. Gregg County with 120,024 square feet, or the population, their office space is 10,000 square feet. They've outgrown their facility that was built in '83 and has been remodeled in 2007, is being considered again. Randall County, which has a population of 126,474, has a 52,000 square foot administration area and enforcement area. It was built 15 years ago, and they've currently outgrown the office area, and it will not meet their future needs. The staff realized as soon as they moved in, they should have built bigger. Como County, which has a population of 118,480, has 52,000 square feet for a jail administration building built as one in 1985. It was expanded in 2000, and they've outgrown the administration area, and they're working currently on a bond since 2011 for a new jail. If that passes, the old jail administrations will be renovated and repurposed to house the sheriff's office and staff, and the jail will be a separate building. Of all the counties above, in comparison to 3 of them, we are way understaffed in relation to the CID division. I'm not asking for more people.
Not yet.
The least that was reported have 7 investigators. Next was 10, and the next was 12. We operate with 5. We are not asking for more, we're just comparing. In conclusion, I think you'll really look at what we're asking for and realize that this is an enforcement building, not just an administration building. And again, it has nothing to do with the jail. You will still see the real and evident need for this, or for what is being presented. The sheriff's office is in need, in my opinion, and you are charged with providing for the needs and ways to allow the sheriff to provide for the citizens of the county. It is obvious a need, not a want. So thank you for your time.
So are you saying that your detention center personnel won't be moving into this?
They will move into that administration building, and we'll use.
You kept saying enforcement.
The administration offices will come over there. There's 3 of them will move into that building. But that area will be used for storage as well, because we have closets that we have our special response team stuff in. They have to pull it out of the closet to put it on. They should have a place to be able to get in there and put that on.
You made an interesting comment. I think you stated at least several times regarding the jail population. Regardless of jail population, the size of your footprint would need to be as presented in this presentation. So I'm kind of curious to know how does that work? If you have a population that is maybe forecast to start going down, but your presentation was predicated on the number of the incarcerated to this degree, even moving forward. If that's not necessarily going to be realized, the justification of that footprint, how do you justify it being 2.5 times the current size that you are?
You have to remember, we're not building a jail.
Right.
So whether that jail has 2 people in it or 600 does not affect this building across the street. This building across the street handles all of our crimes and investigations that we do in the patrol division that we do out in the county. Really has nothing to do with what the jail does. Remember, there's 2 different divisions. And so this right here, the more people we get in the county, the more crimes we're investigating, and the more evidence we're having to storage. A All of our records are mandated by state law. We have to keep everything that, and I talk about personnel records that we have. There's a 25 or 27-page personal history statement that we have to fill out on every employee, and we have to keep record of that employee or in their file the entire time they're employed with us. And the state of Texas comes and audits that stuff every year. So those spaces and those offices are what is in this building. Again, it really has nothing to do with out at the jail. Now, when we get to the jail, if we, 10 years from now, we gotta add on to the jail, then that's where those figures and the study that y'all are talking about earlier would justify whether we need X amount of beds or less, because that's where the people are housed.